at the same time.
We don't have to, it doesn't matter.
Carol,
Yes,
when did you start playing football?
1973.
1973. That's actually when my dad came to New Zealand. That's a long time ago.
It's when I came back from England after my OE.
What did you do in England? You know what I mean?
I was a croupier in a nightclub.
A croupier.
I worked the gaming tables in a nightclub.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like poker and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm on the same page. So when you came here to New Zealand, what was the first football club you played for?
First one was called Saints.
Saints.
Because when I came back from England, in the newspapers they used to have a personal column.
Yeah.
And in the personal column they were looking for players to play football.
Oh, okay.
So I applied and we went down, and it was a team called the Saints back in about 72. And we played a couple of games, friendly games. And I went in goal because nobody else wanted to. So I went to goal. And then a year later, a couple of the organisers within our team went to Eden Football Club to see if we could join up with them.
Yeah.
Which, being a progressive club, they said, yep, no problem. So then we became the Eden Saints.
So where was Saints?
When?
Well, where? Where was it?
Oh, we used to train in Newton. But the Saints was just a name.
Where's Newton?
In the gully, by Kingsland.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Okay.
I'll get you, yeah.
Nixon Park.
Yeah.
That's where we used to train.
Yeah, here we go. Me being a short kid, not knowing where everything is.
You never do.
Yeah, I never do. You're right, Carol. No, that's all good. So I know that from memory you played a lot of games for Eden, and that was before they became Three Kings. Is that correct?
Correct, because Eden and Mount Roskill amalgamated 21 years ago to become Three Kings.
And when were you on the board for Three Kings?
Yes, and for Eden. I was secretary for Eden when we went to Three Kings, and became the secretary of Three Kings, which I held between the two of them for probably somewhere around 40 years. 35, 40 years as
So
secretary.
As a secretary, what do you do?
I
Is
used...
it like a chair?
No.
Okay.
Because this was the time before you had club managers and everything was volunteer. So we had the different departments, but mine was to ensure the information that came from our federation got to everybody.
Yeah.
Took the minutes of the management meeting, did the correspondence. I held a bar manager's licence as secretary of the club. So we ran the bar. Yeah.
Oh, that's all good.
I'm curious, taking it back to your comment about how you got forced to play goalkeeper for Saints. Were you much of a goalkeeper beforehand? Because obviously in your All Blacks career, you played as a goalkeeper.
You mean the Ferns?
The Ferns, sorry. No, that's my bad. But yeah, so did you play goalkeeper much before playing for the Saints, or was it just...
No, that's the first time, because at school I played hockey. And I played most sports, did gymnastics, did everything. And I found that it was, because no one wanted to go in goal, I'd go and try goal. And I enjoyed it, because I did get a couple of bank belts in judo, so that meant I was quite happy hitting the floor. And yeah.
So were you someone back in the day, like you didn't want to mess with you?
I didn't.
Were you someone that like people went there, like, you don't want to mess with Carol? Was that the reputation you had back then? Or?
I was brought up with three brothers.
Right,
So I did stand up for myself.
Oh yeah. So around this time, I believe you made your Ferns debut.
In 75, we were invited to a tournament up in Hong Kong, the Asian Cup. But before we could do that, we had to form New Zealand football. At that stage, weren't basically interested in the female game, and we weren't part of them. We were a separate organisation, so we had to form a New Zealand Women's Football. Hence, New Zealand Women's Football Association on our gear. And between Roy Cox and Wellington, Dudley Vosser, I think it was, they made a Women's Football Association in New Zealand. And then we go up to the Asian Cup. So the players were basically picked between the two federations, two associations. Yeah.
So I remember last year we filmed an episode of AFF TV, and you were telling us, or myself and Shane Winslow from Phototech, you were telling us about a certain incident regarding Voodoo in the goal mouth. What happened there?
Ah, yes. When we were playing up in Hong Kong, We were the underdogs, but we were winning the tournament. We were creaming everyone, Australia included. And this one game we were playing must have been Malaysia or one of those teams, and they decided that to help them out, they'd put Voodoo in the goal mouth so I wouldn't stop the ball. So apparently what they did is sprinkle urine in the goal mouth just to stop, so I wouldn't stop the ball. But in the end we won.
So it didn't work?
It didn't work at all, no.
How'd you find out they were doing voodoo in the goal mouth?
Well, Barbara Cox, for some unknown reason, found out from some of the administrators of the tournament that what was happening, but she didn't want to tell me.
Oh, until afterwards?
Till afterwards.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But the strange thing is, after that was the game we won, and we won the tournament. After that, I actually got a very, very bad cold, head cold.
Yeah.
And when we flew home, I got about a foot off the ground on the plane, and they had to sedate me.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
because my ears were really playing up and they popped. So they gave me a Valium to sedate me.
And do you think that's because of the voodoo that was placed on you?
Look, you'll never know.
You'll never know.
You never know. I think it was basic going out from in hot and cold air cons. Yeah.
So what was it like making your debut for the Ferns back in the day?
They weren't called the Ferns, actually. That's a new name for the team.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, but it was a proud moment, actually, because we're the first team. I choke up about it.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
So, is that your favourite footballing memory?
One of them.
Was there any others? Or?
Lots of them, because I've done a lot of things through my career. Is it my voice changing?
Yeah, your voice is changing. For those of you who can't see on the camera, she's tearing up. So yeah, but do you have any other memories in football?
Yeah, well, look, I've done so many things and advanced so many girls through their football careers by being team managers. Between Barbara Cox and myself, we took a lot of teams overseas in the 80s and 90s through different tournaments up in Europe, through Asia, and these young girls learnt and progressed up to the national teams, which was really good to see. And the other thing, through my involvement with Eden and Three Kings, the young kids coming through who we now see playing Northern Regional Football League, and their children. So, it's really gone through. I was fortunate enough to be appointed to a FIFA Women's Committee. So that was trips up to FIFA, and one of the highlights was the tournament that we went to in Russia, being 5 weeks in Moscow and in St. Petersburg, because we did have time off to go and sightsee, which was really good.
As a footballer, back in the 70s and the 80s, I understand men's football was like a prominent thing. Obviously, 82, all whites qualified for the World Cup. But as a female playing football, what was it like?
We were a novelty. Remember, football at that stage was a male domain, and most of the men in charge of football came over from England, being football male orientated, so to get into the clubs to play was quite hard. The girls could play with midgets in house football, and most clubs allowed them to play up to 12 years old within the midgets, but they couldn't play senior women's football till they were 14. The junior football associations didn't want a bar in them, so it took us a lot of debating to get them to play within clubs as 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds as youth players. So that's something that happened during our time. And the other thing is rolling subs.
Rolling subs. I remember you actually telling me the story, wasn't it you had a big role to play in it? I remember?
Oh yes, Barbara and I did. We both did, because we took a team to America via Hawaii, and when we were in Hawaii, rolling subs hitters, and we didn't know what hitters. We're playing a friendly game, and all of a sudden the opposition took like 5 players off, put 5 new ones on. And we thought, oh. So we had to find out what was happening, and they play rolling subs. So when we came back, we thought it was a good idea to try it out on our young girls coming through, because they could come off the field, the coaches could talk to them what they were doing wrong, point out things and put them back on. And it meant that when you came off the field as a sub, you still involved in the game because you could go back on. And you didn't kind of turn your back and think, oh, well, that was it, I'm not playing anymore. So we fought and fought to get it through. We got it through on our girls because we controlled them. We fought to get it through on the boys. And Auckland Football were then looking after the girls' leagues and the women's games. And between Alan Fraser, Barbara and I, we managed to get it through to the Junior Football Association so the boys could do rolling subs. And in the end, it went through all the community games, the older men, the age groups and that.
So it was you were the reason that rolling subs is... Well, there you go. You can thank Carol here for having having a break on the weekends.
I was like, it was me, a little 11th grade player, always coming off because I was too tired.
Yeah.
I was pretty chubbed back then.
But you still wanted to go back on. You still wanted to be part of the game.
I think that's a really good point, because especially at a young level, if you're dealing with normal substitutions where the kids just come off, if they get subbed off half an hour through a game, they're just sitting on the sideline, they got nothing to do, there's no real connection to the game beyond that point. So rolling subs definitely...
Yeah, and the coaches then could talk to them.
Yeah.
Which was the ideal thing. But it was really funny because some of the members of New Zealand Football, because we're fighting them as well, whenever they'd see me or Barbara walk into the room, they'd go out the other door.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So were you guys like the big two, as we would call it, like the...
within
prominent
Auckland,
figures, prominent figures in women's football.
Yeah, and we still basically are. No.
It's a bit cocky coming in, Karen.
No, it wasn't. No, look, we're not now, but we did our bit to bring football to this level. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's essentially that to an extent. So, moving on to the football these days, can you tell us in a sense, women's football back then compared to now, how's it developed?
Football in my day was home-grown. So all the players in the national side came from home teams. Whereas now, our national players come from teams playing out of New Zealand. And there's becoming a big gap between those players and the homegrown ones. Because I don't think our leagues are improving because the teams and the players think they know it all now. And until you get somebody better to go in, you don't learn. So if you get someone from overseas, when they come back, to put a year into the local teams before they retire, they can show the work ethic that you need to be a top player.
It's like, who was it? There was a Fern that came back and is now playing for Teatatu. I'm just trying to remember who that is though. Just forgotten who it is, but yeah, I can see what you mean in that sense. Also coming back and bringing in like a new level of culture as well.
Correct.
Yeah, so no, I completely get that. No, that's good. So in a sense, just moving on from that, more of like a personal thing. Lockdown just happened, going forward in terms of football. Before we actually go into that, tell us, how did you find lockdown?
Actually, I enjoyed lockdown. It was like having a holiday without feeling guilty about not doing anything.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And the thing is that nobody was going to come and visit you, so you didn't have to do the housework.
I remember you called me actually, and you were telling me about a few books you were reading and the stuff you were doing as well. So.
Oh yeah, look, I was reading books. I was doing jigsaws, doing the pokies on the machine, and also television was very good because they were showing a lot of old games. And so there was a history, and if you went through, you could pick up some old football Ferns games on the television, and they were enjoyable to watch, to see how we've progressed now. So, I watched the under-17s when they played in Jordan to see how they were playing. That was only on at the weekend, but to see how they play like now. And we are improving. The kids coming through are improving, but there's still a big gap.
Just on that, is there any footage of you playing anywhere?
No.
No, not at all.
Unless someone up in Hong Kong has it.
Oh, okay, well, looks like we're not getting that footage anytime soon. In front of you, you've got your scrapbook. Do you just want to go through a few items in that scrapbook?
In the scrapbook, we in 1973, Eden, Blockhouse Bay, and Papakura. I think that's it was. 3 teams went to Australia for the first ever games with the New Zealand teams, club teams against Australian club teams, and that was a great. Well, it was a great trip for the girls because everyone remembers it, and there's a book out at the moment by Heather Reid, and it's Feminism in Football, that actually relates to the players in the 1970s and 80s between Australia and New Zealand, and it shows the growth of football between the two countries, which is quite interesting to read.
Yeah, as I asked before, was it a bit of an issue being a female playing football? What was the whole kind of feministic stuff that happened in the 70s? Was it a bit difficult?
We had support because a lot of the boyfriends were football players. So they used to come down and train and coach and help the girls. But the problem being is that all the gear and the boots was male orientated. And that's only changed in the last 10 years, I think.
Yeah, I remember seeing a photo of, I think, the 2006 Ferns, and the shirts they're wearing were like...
enormous.
Because they were men's ones. And it was just like...
And they just didn't make any woman-specific jerseys?
No, all the skier that we had in 1975 and the goalkeeping shirt was made by Pauline, who had a company, and we had all our gear individually made. The shirts, the shorts, the lot.
Wow.
So they fitted. And even Karen Walker designed and made gear for the Auckland women's football back in the 90s. So that it fitted them.
Dang. No, that's from like as me growing up and playing as a male, like compared to because I was like 11 in 2006. Like I had female friends who had played football, when I was young, and basically I can just imagine them putting on a boy shirt, and I just didn't even notice at the time, Just being a kid.
Take it for granted, just having all that kind of stuff, just just provided for you.
That's exactly that. It wasn't. Yeah, it was just it's just something you didn't think of, and like I remember once one of my female friends, we were playing 7-a-side, and she had to. I remember once she had a pair of shorts that like she just took and she used them as in a football training and stuff, but she had to like fold them over a few times, and it was I think she just wore it because they had like the Nike tick and like some squad number that she had at her club, but she had to like fold it over and so it fit her properly. Like otherwise it was just like dangling over her knees and all that, So
yeah, well, most of the girls' teams wore hand-me-downs, but then a lot of the girls also played dual sports back in those days. They played softball, and quite a few of them represented New Zealand in softball as well as soccer or football, whatever you like to call it. So they weren't. Well, they were female, but they weren't girly girls. So they wore what they were given. Yeah.
Did you? Because you were telling us before that you did gymnastics, you did a whole bunch of sport. This is off camera, by the way, before we recorded it. Was it the same in any other sporting code? With that kind of, you'd get given men's clothing, etc.?
No, because when we did gymnastics, we had our own uniforms.
Okay.
When we did judo, we had our own judo strips.
What about hockey?
Hockey was played for school because I went to Mount Russell Grammar School, and we had to supply your own uniforms.
What do you mean by that? So you had to get it yourself, and then...
Well, you buy your school uniform to go to school.
Yeah.
We bought our sports uniform.
Okay, cool. So that was fitted for women's back then? Or?
I can't remember. Of course it was. We had divided skirts to play hockey in.
Skirts to play hockey?
Divided skirts.
What's a divided skirt? I'm not.
Is it like a sport type thing?
Like, is it like a shorts with skirts thing?
It's like a pair of shorts, but it had pleats down the front, so when you stood, it hung like a skirt.
Yeah.
But it joined.
Yeah. So as you can tell, Jack and I have never worn that, so we have no idea what that is.
Well, no, because guys didn't wear it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's
We had the shorts on option, didn't we?
We wore shorts, but that's kind of
Well, what do the hockey girls wear now? They actually wear skirts.
Yeah. Well, do they wear like skirts, or is it
skirts?
Similar fitted shorts?
Skirts, but they have sports pants underneath.
Right. Okay.
Well, same as the basketball girls.
Oh yeah,
Netball
basketball,
girls.
basketball and netball. Yeah,
Yeah.
Netball. I don't know. Like, well, I don't actually know much about it to be honest, but
They were like a long singlet down to here.
yeah, I don't want to say anything. Really.
I was going to say, has there ever been like any girls that want to play in shorts, or they would like prefer to play in shorts?
Well, they do play in shorts now.
Underneath, yeah. But like, is it a, I
Well,
guess, yeah.
Girls play in exactly the same gear as the guys play in now, but some, if clubs are wise, they buy female fitted ones.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And you can get smaller sizes for the girls. Yeah.
Because I imagine it would be a bit difficult playing in a skirt, you know,
Oh,
playing any kind of activity in an actual skirt.
Well, hockey was all right because you didn't slide tackle.
Slide tackles would be making that pretty interesting.
Yeah, but you know, I'm talking about when I was in grammar school, and that would be what, 55, 56 years ago?
If I do my maths correctly, that means you're 70.
Correct.
There we go. Obviously, playing back then, there isn't many records of the matches or anything like that, as you said before. In terms of results, how was that actually kept by a lot of people?
Yeah, I do have a 10-year booklet at home with all the results in, actually.
Oh, really?
I wonder if it's in here.
Did you end up scoring any honourable goals, like taking a penalty or anything?
Oh, look, occasionally I would play in the reserve team out in the field,
Oh, really? What position? Anywhere?
up front.
Up front?
Ooh.
Up front.
Yeah.
Did you score any goals?
Yeah, I scored goals.
Just for fun?
Yeah.
Can you remember the best goal you ever scored?
The best goal I ever scored, I was on the edge of the 18-yard box. A ball came over, I chested it down and I volleyed it in the goal.
Oh.
Did it go top corner or was it just like bottom?
No, about 2 foot off the side, just inside the post.
Oh yeah, that messes with keepers. I'm not a keeper, but I think it does. I was always told, because I grew up playing as a forward, and my dad always used to say, hit it hard and low and near the post. That's what he always used to say to me. So it was a real kind of, that kind of thing. It was just like cool, and he's like, because you have to make the keepers work for it. I was like, okay, cool. Me being 12 years old, just like, oh, kick it.
Yeah.
That's kind of just what it was. Just back on that kind of record stuff, I understand one of your friends, Barry Smith, recently got an award for service to football in terms of history and research.
Yeah, that was well deserved. Barry has done so much work in keeping the football history alive in New Zealand that you wonder who's going to do it when he's not around.
Oh, it'll be me.
Have you got a room big enough to take all the stuff he has amassed?
Don't know. I can imagine that he's got like a big room of probably like multiple rooms with just shelves of just different records.
Yeah.
I can imagine, so.
Yeah, because they used to do the yearbooks on all the leagues and the Northern League and everything.
What happened to that?
Yeah, they're around here.
Oh, we do that as part of the AGM, don't we?
Did some of them, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, from a few AGMs, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's quite cool. So, yeah.
You need to give yourself a couple of days and go in the container because we kept all the old programs that we could when Auckland teams played the teams from overseas.
I heard they
Because
played.
through them, that was Harry Dodds and Charlie Dempsey. They used to bring all these English teams over.
Manchester United played
Yes.
AFF. I remember that, or as it was called, was it AFA back then?
Yep.
Manchester United played AFF. Or
Yeah.
AFA.
Yeah,
When was that?
I don't know, 1901 or something. What
Was
was
it
it?
1901?
I don't know. I can't remember. When was it?
In the late 90s.
In the late,
Oh, no. Bit further on from
1999.
1901.
Yeah.
80 years
Several
old.
years difference.
Charlie used to bring all these old teams out and we used to always socialise with them.
Oh.
Bobby Charlton, that's a memory I had. He
Did
was
you?
in my car and I hit the gutter and my rim came off. And the next thing I saw, he was running down the road chasing the rim on my car. So we were yeah.
Dang, if he was in my car, I'd be scared. I'd
Why?
be shaking. Well, I mean, I remember when I was interning at New Zealand Football, Peter, the media manager back then, he was taking Chris Wood back to the hospital because Chris Wood stayed for a bit of media stuff. And then I got in the car with him because Peter was driving me home and I just saw Chris Wood was in front of me and I was freaking out. I was shaking. I was like, we're in a little Subaru Impreza with Chris Wood. That's 10 million pounds right in front of me, you know? And I was kind of freaking out.
Mine was a little red Mini.
You had Bobby Charlton in your car.
Yeah, well, see, we used to meet all of them because the next way was Watford came out. We met Graham Watford. Graham Taylor.
Great Watford.
Yeah, they all came out.
That was quite cool. Did you ever meet George Best?
No.
Oh. I
No.
heard he loves his alcohol, but
Well, he would have been pissed in the corner, wouldn't he then?
Would have been.
Yeah.
But yeah. Now, when did you start working at Auckland Football, Carol?
14 years ago.
14 years ago. That would be 2006.
6 or 5. 6.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Because they'd lost their accounts person. I was actually sitting on the board of Auckland Football at that stage.
Yeah.
And I had retired from work.
Yeah.
And they had strife in the office. They lost their accounts person, and the CEO wasn't coping quite well. And so Alex Hayton came over from New Zealand Football to sort out their accounts. I came off the board to sit on the accounts, and I've been here ever since.
You just stayed.
Yeah.
You're staying. And were you full time back then?
Yes.
And now you're part time. 3 days a week.
3 days a week.
Wasn't. All right. Let me guess. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Friday.
That's close. Well, that shows how much I'm in the office because I'm all over the place normally. But
10 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
yeah.
Great working hours.
Well, you got half an hour before we finish. What time of filming is? 1:31 p.m. So yeah. Cool.
Can I say another one of my highlights? I did actually meet Sepp Blatter.
You met Sepp.
Oh, yeah.
And when we went, we had a meeting up in Zurich on Valentine's Day, and he'd put chocolates on everybody's counter
Oh, nice.
by their desk where they sat.
So you're Valentine or no?
Don't be daft.
I've got one more question before we wrap things up on the topic of footballing memories. Do you have one moment in your footballing career, or I guess, outside of your footballing career as well, that one moment that stands out to you the most as your favourite kind of memory of, your extensive football career?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. But I really don't know how to answer it because the whole of my footballing, there I go again, the whole of my footballing career has great memories in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that probably answers the question well though,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah. That was all just
Yeah.
highlight after highlight after highlight.
It was, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. No, that's quite good.
I think that's a great note to finish on.
Well,
Yeah.